ECAfrica100, connecting entrepreneurs on the African continent and beyond. Profiling 100 entrepreneurs in 100 days. Tune in as we amplify African excellence with your host, Vanessa Perumal, on Africa Business Radio.
Hi guys, this is Vanessa Perumal at Vanessa Perumal. ECAfrica100 is our hashtag. As always, thank you for joining this program set up purely to profile 100 entrepreneurs in 100 days. I'm excited about today's guests for a number of reasons. So over the days that we've been profiling 100 entrepreneurs, we told you about JT Communications and how we earned revenue streams and the business model we had, which found us also in a bit of a problem because we always were the company that people go to. And so now that we're finding work, I'm so excited. You know, when somebody arrives like David Alexander, who's a giant globally, he's a copyright expert, he sits on various boards, a compassionate entrepreneur. What I like most about David, he's a father, and I haven't heard about the fathers on the show. David Alexander, thank you for joining us. Tell us what you do and how you and I find each other on this chair today.
Thanks, Vanessa. I appreciate the invitation. It's always nice to have a chat with you. I'm from a company called Sheer Music Publishing, which I started 22 years ago. The need that we wanted to solve was that South African jazz composers weren't getting paid for their work because they didn't necessarily understand the process that they had to go through with copywriting their songs. And also they found the administrative work too overbearing for them. They preferred to be sitting in the studio and creating or on the stage performing, but doing the work of signing contracts and notifying their work to the collecting societies, that was something that they always put off for later. So and later would pile up and pile up and pile up, and eventually it becomes too much to deal with.
Okay, so now we have lots of people listening into the show, lots of entrepreneurs. David is talking high disruption here. Are you saying that people can make money in the music industry? Are you saying that there's a way to make an income stream, and you're saying you have staying power in a sector that we know so little about in terms of positive business stories? Is that what you're saying here on the show?
Absolutely. I mean, the obvious thing is that when you go see a performer playing live, you're paying for a ticket. And
okay,
you understand,
this is a music performer, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you understand that they're getting a percentage of that income. However, these days, you're not necessarily going to a store and buying a CD of their music. You're listening to it streaming on one of these services, or you're listening to it on radio. So how are the people that are contributing to that recording all getting paid? And the people who wrote the song are the people that I'm most concerned about, because they're often the people who the inspiration that the artist uses to connect with their market, but they're also the smallest credits on the album. So I make sure that those are the people whose information is correctly sent to all of the people who are going to pay them. And it's a job that takes lots of people, lots of systems. And in this particular day and age, it's become a job that is about millions of micropayments. So a big global hit song, I wish we had one of these, but a big global hit song can attract 4 to 6 billion unique transactions. The majority of those transactions are at a fraction of a cent. So you would need 10 or 20 of them to actually get 1 cent in your account.
Staggering numbers. I'm not sure when Debanja's podcast will go on, but he's been on the show. And he's got Cream and his platform, and he's a business entrepreneur and scaling, also in diversifying into business markets. Are African musicians entrepreneurs in the space? How big are they, and what's their revenue streams compared to global markets in the work you do?
Well, what I'm very excited about is that people like Debanj, who took Oliver Twist and it went overseas, and P Square, who did Chop My Money with Akon, and Davido, who's now kind of working with the best out there, and WizKid. So all of these West African and that Nigerian sound is starting to make an impression on contemporary popular culture. And I learned when I was at school studying Latin, ex Africa, semper aliquid novi. Out of Africa, there's always something new. And I think this is the time.
Out of Africa, there's always something new. Guys, write that down. That's going to go on David's poster. Out of Africa, there's always something new.
Always. And we've got the new stories. And so the stories of West Africa, the Niger stories at the moment, those are the ones that are being found interesting. But just wait. We've got Ghana waiting in the wings. We've got East Africa with the sounds coming out of Kenya and Tanzania. And of course, we've got this brewing mix of new and electronic sound coming out of Durban called Kom, which is really setting the dance floors on fire. And everybody wants to work with the producers coming from Durban.
And you manage the copywriting, the publishing of the work.
Correct.
You said South Africa when you started. And this is a Pan-African show in a global environment. Tell us about the work you do as a global publishing company, the largest independent publishing company on the continent.
Correct, yes.
Give us some perspective of who you are, what you do in the continent, and how we can connect with you.
So we started off 22 years ago representing these jazz and world music artists, but we very quickly grew to represent a cross-section of music genres in South Africa. And 8 years ago, when the World Cup happened in South Africa, I was exposed to a group of performers and their management team from Ghana, and I got excited and I went to Accra and I said, great, we've got to be signing some of this talent. We had worked with some of the SADC territories, obviously with people like Oliver Mtukudzi and Thomas Mapfuma from Zimbabwe, but now we're working with some great performers and songwriters, Sauti Soul out of Kenya, we're working with Ghana, Stoneboy out of Ghana, we're working with Peter from P-Square from Nigeria and his producer, Flip Tice. So we really are a Pan-African company. What I do find is that it's a lot harder to explain the value of copyright on the continent, simply because they haven't always been paid for their copyright. So often what happens is the African performers are paid for their live shows, but their experience is they're going to a radio station to pay payola in order to get their music played so that they can actually then get performance opportunities that come from
But that wouldn't be right if the value is not created. So this show is pioneering in a number of ways. It's disruptive. It's creating new markets. So Sheer is very focused on publishing as Sheer on your own. And I now recognize in doing this show that collaboration is important to create new models. What can you do, or what can we as a collective do to solve that problem?
Look, I think that we're already connecting into global networks. So because we've become an expert in collecting copyright revenue on the continent, we represent some of the bigger companies, independent companies from around the world. So we will represent people who publish Meghan Trainor or Kylie Minogue or Paul McCartney, and we collect their money for them. But also through those reciprocal relationships, we get somebody who looks after our copyright in that territory.
Right.
So we've got an amazing company like Downtown who's based in New York.
So there's a job creation model in this
Correct,
system.
and it's their job to help us monetize our copyrights in their territories. So we're getting from them sync requests all the time. They say, well, there's this show, The Vice, or there's this show, Private Practice, or any of these ABC, NBC TV shows, and they're always looking for some music, and we're sending. So Jeremy Loops will kind of pitch for this, or Louise Carver will pitch for that. And what we get through this network of independent publishers, we work literally with the best independent publishers in each territory, is we get intelligence about their market. We get understanding about what's coming down the pipeline. Africa tends to be a little bit of the time lag because of that digital delay. So we've seen what's coming in Europe and we've seen what's coming from North America, and we get an opportunity to get ourselves positioned that when that hits here, so when the internet hit here or when mobile hit here, we were actually better prepared. So we had already created a barrier to entry to some of our international partners coming in and doing it for themselves. And that means that we're doing, as Africans, we're solving African problems.
And you're also stopping
ourselves.
people from reinventing the wheel, which is such a big problem because we want to start again and again instead of working on that which works and help it to scale.
Yeah, I think the global multinationals always look at Africa as a resource continent.
Okay,
what can they extract from here and take the profits offshore? Whereas we're looking to keep any of the money that we make here onshore, and we're looking to build a company that is going to grow for generations.
Okay, so this is like, I know everybody's glued in and listening, and like this show is really taking a new direction in financial empowerment. Quick things before we leave, David. This is an entrepreneurial show to help us to scale our own thinking and business. I see the producer counting us down. I want to know a number of things quickly. You're a father, which I love. The African father is portrayed so negatively all over the world. You have 2 kids. Tell me about how, as a dad, you enterprise And you seem to be doing things correctly. Are you always successful? Do you have failures? What business tips can you give us?
I've made many failures along the way, and I think that our idea of keep failing till you succeed, that's definitely very true. But I think that since the birth of my children, I certainly have become more focused about building something that is a legacy business and something that I would be proud of. And that's different to having a lifestyle business that supports me as a single person on my own, or even me as part of a couple to travel and see the world and see amazing bands. Now we're looking to have something that's going to live on for multi-generations. And I am always thinking about what would my son say about what I'm doing. And that kind of keeps me in the straight and narrow, which means that all the decisions we make, we can be proud of internally as a company. Sometimes we need to workshop the environment we're in. I talked about the fact that on the continent they're used to paying payola.
Right.
Here in South Africa, there are many things that we came into a mature market and we found actually that this was not the right way to do things. How do we then take our message of, guys, you can not only retain your copyright, but you should actually be getting paid by the radio stations and TV stations rather than having to pay them. What we're trying to do is to educate the creators there and to say, if you took a percentage of advertising, because literally these guys are making a fortune out of playing your music by selling advertising, the fact that they want to charge you something on top of that for playing your music is a completely...
And it's an education process. Even
Yes.
the show, we have people stepping up who's teaching us about creating monetizing
Yes.
in collaboration, and these are things we don't know about. I have youngsters just wanting to be on YouTube, and they won't give African aggregators an opportunity. So I think that's some of the lessons we can learn on this particular show. You obviously have high transparency and accountability because you collect money.
Yes.
Is that important as a business model before we end the show?
Definitely. I mean, we're looking, I told you about the huge number of microtransactions that we're looking at, but we have a system that delivers statements that each and every one of those transactions is accounted for.
What
And
kind of
people
revenue streams? Are we talking billions that goes through sheer publishing year on year? Is it millions if you're the biggest? How are we playing in that space?
So we reckon that the value of the copyright industries in South Africa is probably around 1.1 billion rand.
Wow.
But that on the continent, it's at the moment, if you had to look at the PwC reports, we're talking about over $3.5 billion in music copyrights. So, and a lot of that is not properly paid through. So a lot of that money is stuck in bottlenecks with gatekeepers, not getting paid through to the right people. So there are companies that are selling ringback tones or selling music and not paying the people that created that music.
So there's a business idea. Compliance officers, people who are visionary can start a movement to find the money.
What's happening. And we found now that with actually, so I talked about a negative impact of the multinationals in Africa, but a positive impact of the advertising agencies, like the big advertising agency groups, like Publicis as an example. Buying up African agencies on the continent means that they're bringing the best practice from offshore here. Suddenly, these African agencies who are taking a piece of music and using it for a TV advert or a radio ad without paying anybody, now they're being forced to adhere to copyright because their global partners saying, well, where's the contract for this? You need a synchronization license. And suddenly we're starting to see money coming from Nigeria.
Nice note to end. Quickly, David, because now we have to end. Your pearls of wisdom, something that we must do or something that inspires you.
So definitely keep showing up. I think that's very important. The idea that we're now 22 years old and my leadership team have all been with me between 10 and 22
wow,
years.
That's incredible.
So, Karabo, who works with me 22 years, Rihanna works with me 17 years. And that core team gives people kind of confidence that it's not just about one person. It's about a team of visionaries who are all passionate about the music. And all of us are spreading out and looking after different countries on the continent and getting experience talking at conferences and meeting with creators. And we're growing ourselves and transforming ourselves as individuals. We transform our family environment and we transform our business environment.
Awesome tips.
Because self-transformation is key to making sure that your business and your family is able to transform.
Power right there. Where do we reach you?
You can reach me, obviously, at our website, sharepublishing.co.za, on Twitter, at Share Publishing. We're on Facebook, look up Share Publishing, and I'm on LinkedIn, David Alexander.
So, guys, Remember we spoke about stalking those that can take you forward? I'm excited that David presents an opportunity to take the 100 entrepreneurs into a territory where we can tell stories in 100 days. I'm going to hold David to account. What I love about David over the years of knowing him, he arrives, he's reliable, he will step in, particularly because we work in media. Sometimes he sits on these boards and he's so well tuned and knows so much more than most people. He picks up and builds bridges and steps in and does the right thing all of the time. And I think that's what we need in leaders. You know, we can agree to disagree, but just to take us forward as businesses and to put our best foot forward. So I've loved speaking to you, David, today. Thank you for arriving. Good luck with your family and your vision that your son loves the work you do. I think that's great role modeling. I hope we can partner as we go forward. Thank you for the work. Thank you for seeding into JTComs. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks for the opportunity. I've loved chatting to you today.
ECAfrica100 is where we're at. Keep on sending those positive inspirations, and yes, we are scaling the show. Yes, we come into your country on the continent, and yes, we are Pan-African movement. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
You've been listening to EC Africa 100 on Africa Business Radio. Join the conversation. #ECAfrica100.